Hello, I'm Sarah Medina, an associate broker with Green Square Properties. Thank you for joining us for this month's 3 on 3 at 3. Gaudreau puts out some fantastic resources, and we appreciate you participating in this one. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for all of our future episodes. Today, we're talking with 3 amazing listing agents about what they're doing and seeing in the market. Rachel Major, Michelle Gaudreau, and Brian Boven. Would you each take a second, introduce yourself, your brokerage, and how irritating it is to you on a scale of 1 to 10 when you see iPhone listing photos? Michelle, go ahead and get started.
Okay. Michelle Gaudreau, and I am with Greenwood Realty. I have been a realtor for just over 10 years, and I think that it's really a disadvantage to your clients if you're using iPhone listing photos.
Yeah, definitely. Brian?
Brian Boven, 5-star real estate, been in the business about 10 years. I would say 11 out of 10. I think that Gaudreau should have something that, grabs that and says rejected, try again.
Unapproved.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if they're doing something as a favor, it's still not doing the client a favor, so.
For sure. Rachel?
My name's Rachel Major with Keller Williams. I've been in the business 9 years this year, and I absolutely despise cell phone photos. I usually look for the pets in the photos to at least make me smile, just to add the icing on the cake.
Perfect. I'm glad I'm not the only one. All right, let's get right into it. The market is always changing. What's different about listing a home today than it was last year? Brian, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing a big range of price points. The price points are going, in that $800 to $1 million price point. There's negotiating room if the property's been on the market, let's say over 30 days. And last year, that was not the case. I mean, yes, indeed, people would still make offers last year, but a lot of those listings didn't make it to 30 days. And this year, some of the higher end stuff is sitting longer, and I'm seeing lower offers, and the clients need to know that up front, that's going to be the biggest difference. The other thing that I'm noticing the most about the change this year is the interest rate factor. We were talking yesterday about what the payment was at 3% for a first-time home buyer and what the payment is at 6% for a first-time home buyer, and it's not even at 6 right now. It's more like 6.75. We were excited yesterday for 6.25, which is weird because we've all been spoiled for way too long at 3%. So, and the number was for first-time home buyer on a $220,000 house was $1,700 a month. So just educating the client up front and the sellers knowing that their activity might be affected by the people that can afford that first-time house.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Rachel, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so what's different about listing a home today versus last year? Last year, the market took a big swing come summertime. It was, crazy spring market. Summer is when the interest rates started climbing, and you had to forecast that when you're pricing a home. And then fourth quarter of last year was a slower time as people got adjusted to the new changes in rates and just the fluctuation and not knowing what was going to be next. This year, this first quarter has been great. People, I think, are accepting the rate and knowing that they have to move regardless. So when comping out a home, I only look at comps 30 days, like max. There's no point in looking back 90 days. I do tell my sellers, comps can be pulled up to a year with an appraiser, but I really don't care about those numbers because that's not the market we're in now. And just, we've been talking a little bit about focused on the micro markets. There's different areas that are really hot and other areas that sit for a while. So it really depends on that particular property.
Yeah, totally agree. Michelle, can you talk to a little bit more about like what Rachel was hitting on, the properties that are sitting a little longer and properties that are going a little longer? What are you seeing with those?
Yeah, so I think that it is important to recognize the micro markets within our area. When somebody asks about what they're seeing in the market, what you see nationally isn't translating to what we're seeing in West Michigan. And then if you look even closer to what we have in different areas, a $200,000 home in Grand Rapids is going to go really, really fast. If you get out a little more rural and maybe you're in a different price point, if you're in the $600,000 or $700,000 out in Middleville, that's going to maybe sit a little bit longer. So more than ever in those price points where it's taking a little longer to sell, we're seeing that condition matters. We're seeing that all the extra marketing efforts matter. So having a good marketing plan is really important. To be able to not just put it out there and see what happens. We're going to expect 20 showings. That's not always the case, especially in certain micro markets. So knowing the market, doing those comps, going back 30 days and looking and seeing what's active and pending, that's your leading indicator of what to expect and how to set those correct expectations for your seller. And I think that that is one of the most important things to do when we're working with all clients is setting expectations.
Yeah, perfect segue into our next question. How do you set proper expectations with your clients early on about what they might experience? Rachel, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, kind of basing on what she said too. You can't just, you can throw a home up and it'll probably sell if you price it really, really low. But if you are doing the proper favor to your clients and figuring out what's important to them in selling a property, we're going to make sure they understand that you do need to declutter, depersonalize, get the home listed, setting those expectations with a client that, at about 10 showings, I expect, with good feedback, we're going to get probably 2 to 3 offers out of 10 showings. Just helping them gauge what this market's doing so they can see. And then, of course, if the feedback is negative, take that, work with it, maybe make a price adjustment or change if needed. We've all done that before. When it comes to, showings, just letting them know, like, if we get a whole slew of showings up front right away, we're in a good spot. If it takes a few days to get showings, we already know 10 days on market, no showings, or 10 showings, no offers. It's the price problem or a condition problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Market feedback, super important. Michelle, what are you doing to set those expectations?
Yeah, so we have some great tools available to us. The Fast Facts and the My Market that shows all the different areas and trends that we're experiencing. The Fast Facts are really great because it will show you last year compared to this year. So if people have an idea from friends, neighbors, family that are telling them, oh, this is what happened over here, this is what happened over here, this was my experience, being able to show them numbers and actual statistics that support the story that you're telling them to set that expectation, I think is really helpful. So I utilize those tools when I meet with sellers.
Yeah, perfect. Brian, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that days on the market is a big one. Just kind of always being in tune when somebody says, how long should I expect this to take for me to be able to sell? And I'm always watching that, it's gone from 14 to 21 to 28 days, and it goes back and forth. And again, back to the micro markets, these are all over the place. But I want my seller to understand that their expectation should not be day one. If there's a hold offers period, their expectation shouldn't even really be at the end of that 5 days to be sitting on 15 offers to review. It's more, we hope to sell your house within this 25-day period. And that's what their expectation should be.
Yeah, one offer is all you really need, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Michelle, I know you touched on it a little bit, but what tools, stats, and technology are you using to educate your sellers on the current market? I know you mentioned fast stats.
Yep. So the My Market is something that I've always used, but the Fast Stats is a new tool that I think is really nice because you can go in and really dig into, again, we say it a lot today, micro market, but you can target into that specific area that you're talking about rather than just county or just school district. You can really target into that. So yeah, those are some tools that I utilize.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. Brian, what are you using?
Comps is what I use. So if I'm talking about a specific property that I'm about to list and they're talking about, what do we do to get ready and do this, that, and the other thing, how long to sell, back to the last question, I'm going to use the comps to educate them on the current market. And I know we hinted on this earlier, but it's really important that we be careful not to get into late summer, fall, winter, because if we're using those comps and educating the seller and say, this is what you should expect, I believe this market's different now. And so you're misleading them as to what it is. And if they're interviewing multiple agents, you could get in big trouble because right now, by using the comps and using, I think they already mentioned the pendings and everything, I call those agents and try and get as much information from them.
Absolutely.
Because the seller's gonna, if they're watching on their phone, they're gonna ask about the property, and I want that answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know, okay, well, you can't tell me the exact number, or maybe you can, depending on how you operate. But I want to know, how did it go on that property? Because if the house was, let's say, listed for $300,000 and it's pending, and you just said this one's $300,000 and it's pending, so this is what we're going to use, and it posts at $385 for the sale price, you're probably going to be a zero instead of a hero. So
Yeah.
no referrals on that one.
Nice. Rachel, do you have anything to input on your tools that you're using or technology information?
I feel like I'm old school and back to I use comps. I mean, I print them all, I write all over them, I memorize them, I call the pending agents. So I'm sure you guys have all gotten a phone call from me asking about the activity you had on said comparable down the road. Knowing if they had one offer or 15 obviously is very helpful, and any other details they can share, because if they had 15 offers, 14 people are still shopping for something like the comp I'm going to list.
Mm-hmm.
And I can share that with my client, and my client appreciates knowing what their neighbor had happen at their property.
Yeah.
So not that we're going to get 15 offers as well, but knowing that we're going to get probably a handful or a good activity with it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Comparable properties, and I think just having your finger on the pulse of today's market is so important. Perfect. Beyond the basics, what do you do to prepare a home for top dollar? Brian, are you keeping the bubble pink bedroom, or are you suggesting neutrals?
Paint is a sensitive subject because when you paint one room, you can end up painting an entire house. And, I have no secrets in regards to preparing a home. It's my marketing strategy. It's very different from many agents in the sense that if I go through a house and I say, this is what needs to be done, typically I do it.
Okay.
And I do it on my own dime, depending on the seller situation, of course. Many sellers are saying, we don't need handouts from you or anything. We just need you to tell us what needs to be done, and that's fine. I don't really have to give you a handout if you don't want one. But in regards to prepping the home, if you have that hot pink or you have that dark purple or something like that, I'm generally going to say, unless there's like 15 pictures on the wall that the daughter just cannot let go down and already hates me for selling her house because she's going to lose all her friends, I'll leave that room alone. But otherwise, we're painting it just because it's too much of a distraction. It's something where people stop while they're scrolling through the photos and go, whoa, look at that room. But basically, in preparing a house for me is going through the house full from the inside and outside. So if there's moss on the roof, I just as soon get that moss off of the roof. And, obviously, I'm not the one doing it because I probably wouldn't be here if I was on the roof. I'm scared of heights, and so, I'd have a big problem. But I partner with companies that are going to take care of the things that are going to show up in inspections so that my seller knows that I went out of the way up front to make sure that the house was, number one, in its best condition as possible without doing a full renovation. But number two, just making sure that it's perceived from the public as a turnkey property.
Yeah, thank you. Rachel, do you have anything to add to that? And maybe hinting on also like why it's important today to prep a house, even though it's still a seller's market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to get top dollar, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you can throw a home up for a decent price and get activity, but do you want top dollar? So to get top dollar, like Brian said, staging it, making sure we don't have excess things in the property. In addition to what he said, we try to make sure our sellers have all the documents ahead of time that they can share with the buyer. We ask for a property survey. We have them fill out a utility form. I love it when I see them on listings because buyers are like, what are going to be the average utilities at this home? Is there a water softener, rented or owned? Like those are basic questions, but they're not basic when you add up how many basic questions there are because it's a lot of information to then share to the next buyer. And the more you can share up front, the more confident that buyer is in the property and they know that you're not hiding anything. So we try to make sure we can share any transferable warranties on roofs, etc. And I have my clients do every listing. We make sure we have them make a list of all the improvements they've made, the year that they did that, and how much it cost them to then give the appraiser. And simultaneously, sometimes we use that data in the listing, like $50,000 of improvements done at this property. So we do that for every home, even if it's only $2,000 of improvements to 100. I think it's important.
Yeah. Love that. How do you prepare and verify data for the MLS? Michelle, can you start us off on that
Sure.
one?
Yep. So prior to even going to visit the home, I'm pulling as much information that I can from resources like previous MLS listings, RPR information, township information on BSNA, anything that I can gather ahead of time. If it's in an HOA, if I already have done work in that specific neighborhood, maybe I already have the HOA bylaws or anything that I already have ahead of time that just makes me more valuable to the seller as an expert. When I show up and I have the map that shows where their property lines are and they're trying to describe it to me, I can pull it out and say, yep, I see the tree line you're talking about right here. Yes, I understand what you're saying. And so all those things that we can do ahead of time just are very helpful. And then, of course, at the listing appointment, just verifying with them what are the HOA dues, what does that cover, and just making sure that we have all of those things ahead of time is really important.
Perfect. I love that. Yep. I love to be prepared. Brian, any ads?
A lot of what she said, I would say the one thing that I have been guilty of is not doing enough research. And so you can't do too much research. And so the obvious previous listings, BSNA, what the township says, all of this, but you really should talk to your seller about what you found, because there are sellers out there, especially when it's a remote property, that decided to throw on 1,000 square foot addition without any permits, right? And so BSNA and the township and everything, they're not correct. And although I would like to think that by now I walk into a property and look at the square footage and go, yeah, that seems right, or, oh, this is way off. Like I said, it's not always a slam dunk, especially when you're talking about 3 different levels. If you're talking about a big 2-story that had the back bumped out on it, now it's whatever that addition was times 3. And so a 3,000 square foot house is now 4,200 square feet, and you don't know it, and you're comping out 3,000. Goes right over the seller's head because they're just looking at, what the price is. And so it's really important to gather all the data and then make sure you explain it to the seller and let them tell you if you missed anything.
Yeah. Great points. Thank you. Rachel, any additions on preparing and verifying MLS info?
Yeah, I do find BSNA wrong quite often, but
Depends on the township, right?
Yeah, even recently I learned how to pull well logs, just extra data on any property that has a well. I know who installed it, when it was installed, how far down they went, the soil type, the age. So just anything that we can find and learn about our properties to help the seller and the next homeowner and to make the data for the MLS correct is so important to me. One of my biggest pet peeves is when MLS data is incorrect.
Yeah.
When they have 2 extra half bathrooms on the main floor and there's actually only 2 full. Making sure it is correct for the consumer shopping to make sure that we are accurate as the professionals in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. What great information. Professionalism like this is in high demand. So I just want to thank our panelists again for taking the time out of your day to be here and to share some of your tips and tricks with us. I hope that these rock stars provide you with some tools to implement in your business to make your next listing your best one yet. This has been another amazing 3 on 3 at 3. Thank you, Gar, and we'll see y'all next month.